was with the Poles and the Estonians and all that in 98, 99 in Bosnia. They couldn't wait to be part of the NATO. When Ukraine got involved in the Balkans, they were so horribly corrupt that their battalion of peacekeepers that they sent left Ukraine a year later with no weapons because they had sold them all. And it was legendary. The corruption of UKBAT was legendary. And you really, in UN corruption, you really have to, lay down the lumber to be a legendary UN peacekeeping corrupt outfit. There was, what was it? I think the most legendary one was the entire mission was in East Africa, and it was called ECOMOG. And it was like I forgot what it stood for. It doesn't matter because it was taken over. A year later, they were called Every Car or Moving Object Gone. So they were that corrupt. And Ukraine was not part of that one. So anyway, the UN, when the UN runs things, it's just corrupt. And so, but Ukraine, even Ukraine astonished them. They're when you're we're not Oregon. Maybe I should start saying at least we're still not Chicago when we come back. And Volodymyr Zelensky, demanding you be allowed into NATO while you're at war, that's not how it works, Shorty. Anyway, NATO pulling the little guy aside and having to remind him of what it already says, and it's said for 70 years. Back in a second, AM 770, KTTH. Well, so interesting. So what was I saying? Yeah, so know this about the NATO. The NATO. One of the conditions of applying, never mind actual accession to membership, is you can't be at war, you see, because NATO doesn't want to have to grandfather you in and then have to sunset your war for you.
Well, sorry to correct you, but it's not a war. It's a special military operation.
Well, it's not Russia that's applying to come. Wouldn't that be a great workaround to suddenly tell Putin, hey, you're in NATO now. We order you to cease fire. But no, you can't join with an ongoing war because that's a pre-existing condition. No matter what the Obamacare says, NATO care says you can't join the pre-existing condition.
It's a comorbidity?
Yeah, because then right when the ink dries in your membership, you're going to go, duh, I invoke Article 5, an attack against one of us is an attack against all of us. No. So you can't do that. Anyway, and by the way, at this point, he will, when the last shot is fired, and it will be at some point, he will be the president of a NATO nation because it's becoming they're a de facto NATO nation right now. So anyway, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has stepped up demands for NATO to make progress on its country's bid to join the military alliance, increasing pressure on Western governments. I don't get what he doesn't get about this. And granted, Russia already thinks that they're in direct conflict with NATO because they're going to be seeing Leopard 2s from such as the Germany. And Americans, 90% of his military supplies have been directly from the U.S. or it's been money that he can spend on U.S. stuff. And so so Russia has, a reason to say, oh, we're at war with America. They're in fact not, but there you go. There you have, but you can't join with an existing conflict. Now you can get into one. Once you are a NATO member, you can get into one. But so anyway,
I think what is very important, our future in EU, and Ukraine is ready to be in NATO. We are waiting when NATO will be ready to host and to see and to have Ukraine. And I think security guarantees are very important, not only for Ukraine, for our neighbors, for Moldova, because of
when right after the conflict ends. It's crazy. He's made more progress to be a NATO compliant military than Poland did in 10 years trying to become a member of NATO. It's just that no one had invaded them. They just didn't want that outcome. And because I was with the Poles and the Estonians and all that in 98, 99 in Bosnia. They couldn't wait to be part of the NATO. When Ukraine got involved in the Balkans, they were so horribly corrupt that their battalion of peacekeepers that they sent left Ukraine a year later with no weapons because they had sold them all. And it was legendary. The corruption of UKBAT was legendary. And you really, in UN corruption, you really have to, lay down the lumber to be a legendary UN peacekeeping corrupt outfit. There was, what was it? I think the most legendary one was the entire mission was in East Africa, and it was called ECOMOG. And it was like I forgot what it stood for. It doesn't matter because it was taken over. A year later, they were called Every Car or Moving Object Gone. So they were that corrupt. And Ukraine was not part of that one. So anyway, the UN, when the UN runs things, it's just corrupt. And so, but Ukraine, even Ukraine astonished them. Well, there are these. You know where Highland? That's the thing about when you throw out a term like I knew where it was. Highland Park, Seattle. Where's that, Greg? You don't go down I-5.
I'm not quite sure, 90, to be honest with you. Do you want me to take this issue to Google Maps? I will.
You take the Murrow to the San Diego to the Renton, right?
Sure.
Yeah. As you're going down I-5 and you're looking at the butt of West Seattle and Burien, that's Highland Park, and that's where that whatever it is the 509 the first Avenue South Bridge is, where they cleared that homeless encampment. Yeah, right there on that one. So anyway, back to Biden falling. One interesting thing about how it was. Yeah, right there on that one. So they're doing in the Ukrainian army. So here's how you know that there's an offensive upcoming. Ukrainian counterintelligence, the SBU. There have been hundreds of Russians, ethnic Russians, who were paid or convinced or coerced to join the Ukrainian army right before the invasion. And because as it turns out, when stupid people invade unstupid people, the stupid people will sit down and say, how do we maximize our stupidness? Ask every Arab nation that's invaded Israel since 1948, okay? How come there's fewer of them, but we're 9-0? I mean, 0-9 against them is what, the combined Arab armies ask themselves. So the Ukrainians probably pretty early on said, let's see who joined before the war, and they isolate a couple hundred guys, start watching them. They're using cell phones on the Ukrainian cell network. They're directly calling numbers into Russia or even Moscow, and so they start watching them. And then the NATO weapons start coming in, the HIMARS, et cetera, and these guys are like, oh, I'm transferring out of the truck driving corps, and I want to be a HIMARS crewman. They start transferring in. Hey, we're looking for volunteers, and I'm Yevgeny Yakov, and I'm from the truck driving corps, and so they're being tracked all along, right? And now that there is a counteroffensive impending, the hammer fell on Monday. On Monday, all these guys, several hundred guys, and all these Ukrainian units, in combat units that are arraying to begin the D-Day 2.0. Sometime next week, maybe on a Tuesday, the Ukrainians say, all right, it's been a year. We found out what the Russians want to know because what these guys were doing, they were communicating. We have it all. We know what the Russians want to know. Time to roll them up. So on Monday, and it's Friday, it's a very actual Friday. On Monday in Ukraine, all these Ukrainian units every morning have a routine. Even though they're about to go to war, they PT in the morning, they maintain their vehicles, they go to classes and briefings. But it all starts with the formation, like at 6 a.m. So they call these guys, like there's 18 different battalions all arrayed up and down the Russian-Ukrainian front. And they had the SBU, the counterintelligence guys, had teams at every single battalion, and they called guys out, handcuffed them, and and in a very undignified fashion, with their grabbing them by the handcuffs with their arms behind their back, lifted the handcuffs up and carried them to the van. And in some cases, it sounded like this. The handcuffs go on. Dramatic music goes up. And off goes the guy. And the guys that have been serving with him are like, wait, no kidding? He was a Russian spy? That makes sense. He was always talking about how he's actually spying for Russia, and he prays for our defeat and my mother's death and the whole thing. Anyway, good riddance. And so why do I point that out, or why am I talking about that? Well, because that's an indicator. That's once you've gotten your final usefulness out of these guys, and it's useful leaving them in that position so that you know what the enemy is looking for. And so that the enemy doesn't know that you know, and they don't have time for a countermeasure. So you do that as probably one of the last big picture moves before your big picture move. So there's that. Who wants to hear the coyote again? Anyone? Come on, Craig.
You can see me raising my hand in here.
Okay. All right. So she's chewing on a bone, and I'm acting like I want to take the bone from her mouth with my mouth.
That dog's a mutt, right?
She's a hybrid Malinois coyote.
Oh, is that a pejorative these days?
No. But she's about to be more coyote than Malinois. Some guy tweeted, I wouldn't let that dog near my kids, if I won the lottery or whatever. Yeah, that's what's funny is she goes back to Malinois when my daughter's around. She scratches it. Anyway, back to Biden falling. Interesting. So what was I saying? Yeah, so global homelessness or something. It's like just say it. This is a selfish time grab, is what it is. Want to hear the sound of crickets at the White House press room?
Always.
Okay, here it is. Here's the sound of crickets. The first sound you'll hear will be. They don't identify the journalist, but the journalist says, "I wonder what the sound of crickets is, Admiral Kirby." And he says.
So what do you say to the majority of Americans who believe that the president is himself corrupt? Wow, Jesus.
There you go.
Was that a pounding of the podium?
Yeah, that was Kirby. First of all, doing what's his name up in Canada?
Trudeau?
Doing a Trudeau from yesterday.
LGDP,
Actually, from like a year ago.
LBG.
So, anyway, I don't know who the journalist was, but nobody has asked that question. And so good on you, mate, for that. I don't know that Kirby's the guy I'd be asking, though, to TBH on that one. Because he's up there just for business and, the whole schmear. And
isn't he the de facto White House spokesperson?
He basically is. Yeah. So since the KJP is not going to answer it, why not ask him that same thing?
Well, she'll try to answer it. It just won't be.
It's not rational, it's not reasonable, and it's not practical.
Look, the president's been very clear.
So what do you say to the majority of Americans who believe that the president is himself corrupt?
And that's the question that shall not get answered. Here's the thing. By the way, let me just answer this right up front, because already someone on Twitter said it. I said yesterday, you don't take points off the board. You know why? Because that's how you think of winning. I know you have a sure thing at the goal line, but you just kicked a field goal. Don't care that they're offside. Don't take the points off the board. I don't want another shot at fourth down. I've got 3 up. We're now up. Okay, you don't take the points off the board. The goal line in this debt ceiling thing was set by Chuck Schumer. When Chuck Schumer said, and of course he's a very discreet guy. You have to really peel the onion to get this from him. But when he said out loud, look, this house can't do anything. Let's let them step on their own Jacksons or whatever, and then we'll look like heroes. Well, okay, so McCarthy did what the Speaker of the House should do when you have the majority, and that means that's how you're the Speaker. And he forced the president to negotiate with him. The president was even in on the Schumer strategy. So they passed. And you know what? A deal disappoints the fringes. All right. So that's that. And so a Twitter guy had asked me, he had said, not a good deal. Sometimes you have to stand up against out of control spending, and the Republicans did not. Unit party. UNI. I guess he means eunuch. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. But, at a time like this, a deal is a good deal. And my reply to any of you saying this isn't winning politics, whatever, is where were you? If the spending is the issue, where the hell were you between 2017 and 2021? And granted, there was a worldwide pandemic. Okay, so there's that. But even then, the debt increased more than any other 4 years. And so where were you when, by the way, it was a unitary government? And by the way, I said this when Bush exploded spending too and created the Department of Homeland Security, the Franken Bureau. I don't know why that's, it's like the fourth largest expenditure, came out of nowhere. But so anyway, I'm just going to tell you that the Republicans need a win. That's a win. You put a deal up as a win. And it's been right. So, anyway, back to Biden falling. One interesting thing about how it was, to me, the most interesting thing yesterday was not that an 81-year-old man doesn't look down when he walks. He has that weird gait that I'm walking on broken glass gait where the entire foot goes down at once. He doesn't go, heel toe. It's a delicate little gait. And so he's sitting there for whatever, 5 hours or graduating. He gives a speech for an hour and a half about international events. And it's like, that you do know this is the Air Force Academy, right? And then he trips over a sandbag that had been sitting there lying in wait. And it was a little podium. It was a little platform that the presidential podium was on. And he took a spill. I mean, it was noisy, and CNN was actively trying not to play the audio, but the audience gasped and all that. And I think, I think he shouldn't try to show physical verve or whatever he's trying to do when he does his little jog, like up to the mic or whatever. Just don't do that. You're 81, dude. Something's going to break. But I will say this, he did take quite a spill. And
old people falling is no joke. That's how you get broken hips and serious medical
conditions. So he reached in, he pressed his life alert, and he said, "I'm Biden and I can't get up." And but you saw the underside, you saw the sole of his shoes, and those are old man shoes.
No joke.
Those were not leather sole, no grip or whatever. But he fell and he couldn't get up on his own. I mean, strapped himself up. When he got back, the worst. I got to say, no one is even showing video of this. There was, I'll try to find the outlet and I'll put it on Instagram, where the Ukrainian betrayer is on Instagram at Bryan Does Junk, Bryan Does Junk, one word. So anyway, as he's getting off Marine One, he hit his head on the door, the top of the door at least. But he bonked his head on the way off Marine One, and then they workshopped the joke. What's going to be the proper, walk by at the South Lawn with the turbines going? What is going to be the comedy line to make everyone know you're still old Joking Joe? And what he's going to say here is, "I got sandbagged." And by the way, he could say, it's Kevin McCarthy probably put it there because he sandbagged me or whatever. But he's going, he's going full nonpartisan, and he does this really theatric stop. And as he's looking into the sun, and as he takes his aviator glasses off, as if he just flew the helicopter in. he stops and he makes a scrunchy face, sort of old man, where'd I put my cheese, kind of face. And then he's trying to remember the line. He stops and he delivers the line. And I think I got to say, NBC had the best audio of it. But he does say, "I got sandbagged," and no one laughs. There he is. There you go.
I think the helicopter got the last laugh.
I know. Though, again, the Marine Corps with the comedy line. So, and they don't shut down the turbines because they immediately go back to whatever it is, Burleson Air Force Base. Oh, you Marines and your turbines. And Karine Jean-Pierre probably yelled at the Marine liaison for stepping on his line with your stupid turbines or whatever.
It's not rational, it's not reasonable, and it's not practicable.
It's not practicable. It's not in true international pressure. So anyway, I won't play it again unless I do.
Well, DeSantis...
I'm sorry, Greg, go ahead.
I was going to say DeSantis and...
Yeah?
Stop that.
We can't shut down the turbines. We can't restart them if we shut them down.
Now... He did see, I think a lot of people saw, he had a fall at this Air Force event. And, I don't know if he sustained injuries, but I just want to say that we hope and wish Joe Biden a swift recovery from any injuries he may have sustained. But we also wish the United States of America a swift recovery from the injuries it has sustained because of Joe Biden and his policies.
Oh, snap. No, he didn't.
I did not see that punchline coming about 8 miles away, but... Anyway, nice attempt by Ron DeSantis, first recorded attempt at humor on the campaign trail, June 1, 2022. And also, that's the thing. It would be really easy to make fun of that because he's doing his delicate little walk and all that. We all have parents who do delicate little walks, and if they don't yet, they will. And my dad was a frail chap. There towards the end.
And if you make fun of someone for taking a fall, rest assured, what goes around comes around. You're inviting bad karma into
some